Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from Portland, Oregon, please welcome conservative talk radio host Lars Larson.
Something. I did write a couple of things down today because I feel really humbled to be standing in front of you. Whether you know it or not, and I know some of you by name, I know some of you by emails, but for most of you, I use your work every day. Now, one of the rules I try to set for myself is that I'm not going to use your work without crediting you lavishly, and I think that's the very least that you should expect of any of the folks in my line of work. Because I'm in radio. Now, some of you have heard my radio show, some have not. I'm one of those second or third tier radio hosts out there, but I can't tell you how grateful I am for what you do. Because I started in radio about 35 years ago, and in those days, there was one wire service machine down the hall, and that's the one place you could get information. And that stayed true until about 15 years ago, and really true until about 10 years ago, where now I don't even know if you could count the number of sources of information I have, and many of them come directly from you, from the blogosphere. And it's so important that I thought I needed to tell you some practical things, because while you're going to hear today people who predict that this form of media is going to supplant and replace that form, I don't know if anybody actually knows where social media is going to take us. I think if you went back to 1995 when Netscape came out, nobody would be able to say, well, I know exactly where it's going to go. It's going to lead to tweets, it's going to lead to videos, it's going to lead to all these things. We didn't know how it was going to be used. But what I do think is true is that the different forms of media can work together really well. As long as the folks who do radio shows like mine, or television shows, multiplicity of those on cable, even those originated not by major networks, but by you, using the technology that gets cheaper and cheaper all the time, as long as you insist that the people in my business credit you for what you do. Because I'm glad for this ability to focus. I think, if anything, you should congratulate yourselves that social media has been so successful. In the same way that Jonah just mentioned, social media does on a regular basis what some of the mainstream media has only done now and then. Hidden camera, ferreting out information, and debunking even the most powerful people in the media. Let me tell you a quick little story. There was a point where I was doing both an opinion talk show and I was anchoring a newscast every night on a local news station, like the one in your local community. It was the Fox station. And I would go over and do the radio show, and then I'd go to the newsroom and work television, and I'd keep my opinion out of it. Well, one day, there was this story on this site called Drudge. And the reason I frame it that way is that it said, and it had a local connection, that the president had some kind of, romantic thing going on with a young lady who had graduated from a college in the town where I broadcast, Portland, Oregon. And that afternoon I went to the assignment desk and I said, hey, there's this story that the president had this thing with this young girl at Lewis and Clark College. And they said, well, we called a couple of people, we looked at the wires, there's nothing there. The next day, the story broke to the whole nation. And people took notice, and you all know what happened after that. There was a story that was supposed to be the story of how George W. Bush had stinted on his service to the country in the National Guard, and a major newsman who had credentials that went back for decades said that he was going to take down the president with all these documents, and people in social media said, no, you're not, because the documents are fakes. You're a longtime newsman, but you can't tell that these are fakes. What in the world are you doing? And they tore that Dan Rather story apart, and they kept it from doing what Rather and a lot of people would have wanted it to do. And you know the rest. Fast and furious. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. Because you may not have broken that kind of story yet, but the stories you break at the local level or the regional level or the national level are so important, and you've got to keep doing it. Fast and Furious. Elizabeth Warren. NBC, which finally came to Fast and Furious this week after 1 year of refusing to cover the story, not one word on that network, and they finally came to the story because of social media. But that's where you can both work in conjunction with folks like me. And, you know, I guess I'd call you sort of 1,000 points of focus, because I have to be a generalist. I have to talk about everything that's out there. You folks can afford to concentrate in some cases with a laser beam focus on just one subject or one area. And if I can use that, and you can work a nice partnership with people like me, not just me, but everybody else doing talk radio, doing cable news, then it works out best for everyone. And I want to encourage you to keep on doing that. And if any folks in my business start using your work without crediting it, shoot them an email, shame them into it. They should not do that to you. You work hard, you deserve to be rewarded. You know, there was a panel this morning on copyright law, and they stressed that copyright law is controversial, but ultimately, what you do has tremendous value. I've given you half a dozen examples of where it had value to an entire country. The best country on planet Earth as far as I'm concerned. And I am an unabashed conservative. I love what you do. So Mom, my late mom, when I was a little kid, taught me I should never show up at somebody's house without something in my hands. You don't show up empty-handed. So I'll throw you a story, and I'll just give you the details, and then you can email me if you want. And I would love it if all of you would put a little laser beam focus on this. A few hundred miles from where we're sitting right now, there are forest fires that are burning up America. And a few hundred miles from where we're sitting right now, there are real Americans who died in those forest fires, both fighting them and being victims of them. And a few hundred miles from where we're sitting, there's a gigantic 747 airplane that could be putting those fires out right now. And a few thousand miles from where we're sitting, there's a federal government that for no apparent reason, not cost, not licensing, not anything else, will not use that airplane. The airplane was developed by a private company with their private money, $50 million of their own private money, and they have been begging the Forest Service to hire them. They've been hired by Mexico to put out fires and Israel to put out fires, and it's sitting right there. And I wish you well. Send me an email and I'll be glad to give you the details. Talk at LarsLarson.com. Thank you so much for letting me appear in front of you today.